Hello, I'm Matthew. Welcome to our cottage at Nashville, where we have been baking bread and making fruit cobblers. And it occurred to me that a wonderful thing to show you would be a really professional but easy way to serve bread baskets. And I've got some wonderful biscuits hot from the oven that I will show you how to slip right into them for service. And also stick around. I will show you one of the great traditions that is local to my place in the world, Kentucky, and how we very often eat bread, and it's a tradition that I've known and loved all my life. So, how should we get started, and what is this for? Well, when might you serve bread? You might want to put bread on a breakfast table, lunch or dinner table. Maybe you want to put it on a buffet. We'll talk about it as we go. I'm going to show you three ideas. The first, using this beautiful, isn't this crystal bowl fabulous? I cannot find a maker's mark on it, but my husband picked it up in a brocante recently, and I think he did very well. As I always say, when people ask, how in the world do you find things so often that are so good? You don't look if you don't search, and we are out searching all the time. So I'm going to show you one idea for something like this. I'm going to show you another idea with, this is a China vegetable bowl or a dinner plate. And then I'm going to give you even another idea, probably my favorite yet, in a beautiful wicker basket. So, for a crystal bowl, or any kind of glass, porcelain, china, earthenware, you want something that is, it's going to be in the style of whatever kind of entertaining you are offering. Casual or formal, doesn't matter, but they should go together. And if your container is at all sensitive, like crystal, for example, could be, I'm not going to suggest you serve in it any kind of hot bread. So this would be for a room temperature service. Now, we'll come back to that because I'm going to show you one technique with the napkin that is pretty universal for all three methods. So, a sensitive container, use room temperature bread. For china, we are going to use warm bread from the oven, hot if you want, and we are going to not add any additional heat source. And for the wicker basket, stay tuned because I'm going to show you how to use a quarry tile from your oven to provide subtle, gentle heat to keep the bread warm over a long period of time. Okay, so let's look at linen. We have specialty linen, like this antique example. It could probably use a bit of cleaning, but it really doesn't bother me to show you. Look at this. Very, very, very fine. This is probably cotton and beautifully embroidered. I imagine by my great-grandmother, but I don't know that for sure. We have another version of this same sort of thing. This one is commercially made, but in a very homespun style. And let me just show you how you might use it. See, it's cut like an X, and you can literally place it in your basket. And in my experience, I remember this from my great-grandmother and grandmother, they would always go around, put the bread in, and then fold these over concentrically all the way around, so the decorative one is on top. Now, that's perfectly fine if that's your speed. Most people do not have one of these around. So what I'm really going to give you today are alternatives. Just to show you again, if you have one like this, let's go to this vegetable bowl. This would be for a small amount of bread, and it's nice to have this kind of overlap, you see? You put your bread in, warm, and just go concentrically around, folding over. So each of them has a little flourish of embroidery. And then I would present it to my guest so that this opens up or possibly opens left to right like a book, depending if the embroidery has a strong directionality about it. So those are just two quick examples for a very specific kind of linen that you may or may not have. So let's look at some other linen. You might have something like this beautiful antique linen with this elegantly embroidered monogram. You might have these, which I gave as a gift to my mother because even though they're antique, at some point someone with her same initial embroidered them or had them given to them as a gift. Beautiful. You might just as well go with something casual. I love this. This is a brand new tea towel. New as in manufactured recently. It is so used, it shows all the stains of having used it in the kitchen, and you'll see it almost doesn't show at all, so don't be worried about that. Now, it is washed. It is not actually freshly used. So just for an example, let's use this. This is a restaurant napkin. I did not steal it. It was sent to me as a sample from a mill that makes this sort of thing. And let's make the basic liner for this beautiful crystal bowl. The idea is you want to think about the size of your bread that you need to put inside your liner, and you want to think about the depth that you need to fill, and you lay your linen flat before you, and horizontally, parallel to your chest and your shoulders, find the center line. In fact, if you want to fold this back to you and press a center line, I would not do that with the iron, but if you want to do it with your fingers, that's just fine. And what you're going to do is start from the side nearest you and simply roll forward. I prefer not to make it too terribly tight, so let's give it about 2.5 rolls. I'm literally leaning on it to make them meet. See, they meet in the middle. I'm going to hold them at either end. The back is flat, and I'm going to just turn it over. Now, that's when I look at my container and see about what size it is. And I'm going to fold these in to fit inside. Look at that. Now you want it to open like a book. I hope you can see that. See how it opens? Let's see how I did. I may have gotten the size completely wrong, but you go in and you bring this open, and look at that. Look how nice. Maybe you put corn muffins, maybe you put blueberry muffins for breakfast, maybe you put some, I don't know, Queen Amman, some kind of wonderful crispy pastry. But that's very, very nice. And if you want, I will show you in the next one actually. I want to keep this one looking very pretty. If you want to have full closure, I'll show you how to do it. So let's see. I love this so much, I'm going to use this. You would do the same treatment from this beautiful crystal bowl as you would on this vegetable bowl, no problem at all. I'm going to move it aside for now. Let's say you don't have a bowl or a basket to hand, but you have a dinner plate. I learned this whole method, by the way, when I was catering in Washington, D.C., and all the waiters were doing it. And I thought, boy, they're onto something. So I've been doing it ever since, and it works terribly well. I've done it for all sorts of fancy people since, but I also do it for casual dinners at home. So now we have to decide, are we going to run it long ways or short ways? Well, look at your container. I think that long ways is too long, so let's just go the short way. Now, I want to be able to reach a bit further in. So we've got the length for it. I'm going to only fold it over twice. You want both sides to be the same, so you are always folding from one direction and then the opposite direction to meet at the center line. Now, again, fold it over and look at your container, in this case our plate. I'm just putting it over the middle for a rough size guide. Fold each side in, and these can or cannot overlap depending on the needs of your situation. And then I very simply, keeping everything flat, transfer that to the plate. Look at that. And I don't know how easily I can show you this, but because we have folded these flaps wider, we can actually reach in and tuck our bread inside for a warm plate of bread, basket of bread that stays warm through dinner service. I will suggest, if you are having a very casual meal at home, maybe you're serving one kind of bread and it goes with the whole meal. If you're having a first course, some kind of course as a main course in the middle, Maybe it's the same bread with both, but if you're having a very fancy meal, you might have different breads with each course, in which case you only serve as much as will be needed with the course. And when the first course, the salad, the soup, what have you, is cleared away, so is the bread from that course. If you're having one bread throughout, you might just quickly glance at the tablecloth and see if you need to brush away any crumbs between courses, even though you're leaving one bread throughout. So now we move on to the real prize. I want to show you how you use a wicker basket, a quarry tile, terracotta quarry tile, and whatever kind of linen you like to make a lovely basket that looks elegant and maintains some heat over time. And I happen to have some warm biscuits that just came out of the oven, and I'm going to show you how I style them for a table in this basket. Also, the project of assembling what I needed to do this was a real community affair, and it reminds me that I strongly encourage you, please sit down with people you love. Sit down with people even that you like. Have meals with them, and after the meal, linger. Linger to talk, linger to have an extra cup of coffee, whatever you like. We need the human connection, and our society could easily lose that. So, the meal does not have to be complicated, but I do encourage you to make it as delicious as you can. And even if you don't want to grow a giant garden, for example, I encourage you to have a few pots of detail and of flavorings, of things that you can reach for often to really, really easily and conveniently elevate the quality of everything you're eating and serving. All of that said, I will tell you, I found this basket for $2 at a charity shop, and I saw my friend Jametta, who helped me with it. Thank you, Jametta. Then I went to my friends at the tile distributor. Thank you, Valerie and Matt, for finding the right tile from your inventory and cutting it to size, and not even charging me a cent. It's good to have vendor friends who treat you well. It's because we have relationships over a long time. Then I went to see my friend Danny at the fabric shop and found this piece of, it is a batting that on one side has a metallic film, and the commercial brand name is Enselbright. It's what's used in potholders and such, and I'll show you how we're going to use it. My point in raising it now is that Danny and I had a lovely talk about bluegrass music and how we serve things around our tables and what we like to listen to while we're cooking, and go out in the community, find the things you need, and talk to people. It's wonderful. It is wonderful. So, here's what we're going to do. First thing, you need a quarry tile. This is terracotta, unglazed, and certainly there's nothing metallic on it. There's no decoration at all. And of course, when you first get it, you want to be sure it's going to fit in your basket. If not, you can have it cut to size. You can purchase baskets and tiles that go together, in which case they might say that the tile is microwave safe and so on. If you do not have such a manufactured product bought with instructions that say you can microwave it, I do not encourage you to microwave a tile from your hardware store, for example. I do not know how it would perform, and it could be dangerous, so I do not advise that. But when I got this one, oh, it says made in, but then it's cut off, so I can't tell you. It was covered in dust from having been cut. So rinse it with hot water. Never put soap on this kind of tile. You also don't need to scour it particularly. You can just wipe it off. And while it's damp, a lot of people say you should run it under water before you heat it. I have found that that is not necessary, but use your judgment in that regard. And then you put this in a low oven. Let's say 200 degrees or less. I would call it a warming oven. Again, not a microwave, a real cooking oven. And you want to heat this for 10 or maybe 15 minutes. And while that's heating, I want us to think about the basket. You do not want to put a hot stone into your basket. It could catch a particularly dry basket on fire, or if you put it down on your table, it could, through the course of the meal, leave a damage some kind of ring or other marring on the surface or finish of your table. Preferably, and this is really going back, it's hard to even get them made now, but preferably you have a substantial, thick, professionally made pad that fits over your table. And I'm the first to say, unless you were reading a magazine like Southern Living and got very lucky to find someone listed in the advertising in the back that still makes them, I don't even know where you can get those pads now. So I'm going to assume you don't have them. I do encourage you to use a padded, sort of felt on one side, vinyl on the other pad under your table linen, because it is always a good idea to protect your table. And when you place your cups and flatware and such down on the linen, it gives just enough of a padding that it feels a bit more luxurious. So that's the only table preparation I'm going to assume you're using. To your basket, we add our Insulbrite. And this is the kind of fabric that is used on the inside of a pot holder, oven mitts, and so on. You want one piece folded in half, and this is the very simplest way to do it. If I sewed, I would probably make a beautiful sort of pot holder that fits in the bottom perfectly and has a layer of this on the top and the bottom with a thick layer of batting in the middle, and then some, decorative, charming little fleur-de-lis or calico or some kind of cotton covering with a little piping around the edge, and it would look very custom and elegant. But I don't sew, and I'm not going to track down a seamstress for this video. So in it goes, into the bare basket. You just want to fit it tidily to the bottom, handling your hot tile carefully. Again, a low oven, and bring it out with an oven mitt. Never ever, please, put your basket in the oven. You will have a house fire. So in it goes. And this is warm. Now, I happen to think this beautiful, I'll hold it up for you to see, blue linen napkin isn't that beautiful. It's actually a kitchen towel, but we are going to use it as our liner today. I want to be able to reach in and have a depth of lip that covers the bread. So I'm making these quite wide, but of course equal on both sides. I'm going to check my container, and I'm a little too wide. So now is the time to revise it. I need to make my flaps. See, I'll use that to anchor it. A little less generous. Here we go, into the middle. Sorry, I'm covering what I'm doing there, and that's not my intent. I was checking my dimensions again. Now, you see, we have the loose ends here. You want to be sure that when you put this in, you mind your loose ends so that when you reach in for your bread, you do not pull them apart. Now, I'm going to bring back some biscuits in just a moment and show you how elegant this is when you serve it. But that's the basic idea. Just to reiterate, if you're using a bowl that might be heat sensitive, if you are using a plate that might be heat sensitive, whatever it is, only use it with room temperature bread. If you're using a plate because that's all you have, that's no problem at all. You just put the bread right in and proceed. Then, if you're using something like this wicker basket, remember to line it with the heat-proof Insulbrite, or if you don't have that, maybe you can just use a very heavy kind of small dish towel that you folded in half. You just want to protect the bottom of the basket and your table from the hot tile. Then goes the terracotta tile, which you have warmed, but you have not put it in a hot oven for an hour. A low warming oven for no more than 10 or 15 minutes, and handle it carefully. Then on goes the folded napkin, and the bread will go in. I'll be right back to show you how I do it. Welcome back. I can't say we didn't get a little distracted with the wonderful biscuits while we were on a break, but I'm glad to be back. I also sliced some sourdough bread to show you what you might do just as easily as with a hot bread. So let's say you are having a luncheon or laying a buffet, and you want to do a bread basket on a plate, just like I've shown you. I have just sliced the bread in such a way that I can literally tuck it in one side. I'm going to turn this to make it easier for me, and I'm putting the round end inside the pocket because it's just easier to feed in. And what you want to avoid is, particularly if you've had a rich, enriched, buttery or oily bread, you want to wipe your fingers well and dry them before you fluff this to a close. It will not be appetizing to your guests if you bring this beautiful presentation smudged with greasy prints. So, see how easy that is? And then when someone wants in, they just pull it back and take one. If you wanted to be verging on precious, you could have a little tong, maybe beautiful silver that you've polished, but I think that's going a little far. At least for the sort of entertaining I do these days. So, I'll move this out of the way, and I will come back to this beautiful basket with these luscious biscuits. And I'm going to tuck these corners in just for neatness. And I've got this nice deep pocket here, and I'm going to very carefully lay the biscuits in. And you can experiment with the size of your biscuit and how many fit in, how many you want to serve at one time, and so on. Try to avoid what I just did and rake a biscuit across your linen. Look at those. Just look how beautiful those are. If you want to know how I do it, check out my little crumb. Check out my biscuit class, also on YouTube. It's not even a class. It's really just a film showing you how I do it. And you can get the recipe on my blog. And that's all that will fit, but that's just fine. Wipe my fingers again, and I will show it to you. Look how pretty this is. And with cleaner fingers than I've got now, you might work this completely over. Make sure you sweep away any little crumbs. And that is one of the finest bread baskets you'll get anywhere in the world. I say that on the authority of having been many fancy places and served bread baskets in a good number of them, and very few rise to this standard. Now, it's a bit silly to go to all of this work for presentation if your bread itself isn't excellent. So that is of primary concern. Excellent bread. But I also want to show you, in good old Kentucky, what our tradition is for when either a biscuit or a yeast roll is served. Certainly a biscuit at breakfast, or maybe a biscuit or yeast roll, even toasted yeast bread, like a pan mi or any kind of farmhouse bread. What we do at the table, and it is extremely casual, though even done sometimes at fancy meals, depending on the household. You have some really good butter. This is probably more than would be used for one person. So I'm going to put some of that aside for another person. Another purpose. You have a portion of butter that you want for your bread. And we have one of our great local products, pure sorghum. Sorghum molasses, it is often called. And it is the concentrated juice from sorghum cane. And it is a great specialty in my part of Kentucky and all the way down into Tennessee. I don't know how far it goes into Tennessee, to tell you the truth. So if you want to know, you can check that out for yourself and let me know. I'd love to know. But in west central Kentucky, we have many growers. This is from Caneyville, which was made less than an hour from where I live in Kentucky. And you literally, this is the real way, pour it from the jar onto your softened butter. And some people like a little, some people like a lot. And all my life, even, as I said, quite fancy places, no one is ashamed to say, I've licked it from my finger and that is delicious. For those who are not from here, it might be a slightly acquired flavor because it's rather minerally, a little irony, but it's delicious. And then with your dinner knife, the butter and the sorghum are mixed. And maybe you like it smooth, maybe you like it streaky, but either way, you might take your fork or knife and fork around the middle of your biscuit. I hope you can see that there, just to open it nicely. And I'm going to break this in half because it's an awful lot. And then you spread this marvelous concoction of butter, softened butter, and sorghum onto your biscuit. And that is the delicious taste that I have known my whole life. I remember as a young child, at different times, sitting on the knee around the dinner table of almost everyone older than me, and being fed this, telling me how marvelous it was. So I am prejudiced. But if you can get your hands on some sorghum, I do suggest you try it, because it's wonderful. And as my father says, you always want a real taste of the local flavor. Well, sorghum is the taste of my part of Kentucky. Other tastes as well, but boy, it's everywhere. And even if you need to sweeten a sauce slightly, or some barbecue sauce, or many times where other places might use sugar or brown sugar or regular like blackstrap molasses, we use sorghum. So it's a wonderful thing. If you make this kind of bread basket, let me know in the comments, show me with a tag on Instagram, and let me know what you serve it with. I'd love to know your tradition in your part of the world. And until then, enjoy. I've got some awfully good biscuits that are going to keep me busy. See you soon.